pretty silly, really. We really need to put this in context. The context of the novel is... Hi, I'm Bruce Pattinson from Total Education Centre, and I'm going to talk to you today about the context of The Road. Anybody who reads this novel tends to love it. It's a wonderful novel, and it's exceptionally exquisitely written and crafted. When I first read that novel, I was taken with it, and I've enjoyed rereading it and rereading it again. A little bit about the author, but not too much. You can find plenty on Cormac McCarthy on the websites, and you can probably even go to Wikipedia and get a general idea of what he's like and what his body of work's like. He's an American author who's been certainly highly acclaimed over the years, and this novel you'll find is a little bit different from many of his other novels, and certainly a departure from the standard style that people expected from him at the time. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's been so widely acclaimed. And certainly we know this because it's been made into a film and people talk about it, and it met great critical response, very positive critical response. Another aspect of the context that you should think about before attempting this novel is to understand some of the terminology around it. So as you're reading and as you're studying it, you can certainly focus on what those things mean and the figurative meaning behind the text. It's terminology such as dystopia, speculative fiction, apocryphal novel, and indeed the concept of the road trip. I mean, all these are expanded on in the notes, but if you haven't got those notes, you can always go to the website and get them, but you can also look all those things up. The sense of the hero's journey is particularly important in this one because it's extremely atypical of what's happened in other road trip movies. There's no real hero in this one especially, and certainly it's very different in its approach. The context of the novel in terms of when it was written and why it was written certainly captures the mood of the times. The dark sort of despairing thoughts about a post-apocalyptic world were quite clear in those days. The sense that survival is enough was one of the catchphrases that was certainly around during that period of time, and it doesn't matter what type of cataclysm we're talking about. It has been postulated by different critics and writers that it could be a nuclear war, it could have been global warming, it could have been a meteor, it could have been anything really, and it doesn't actually matter what it was. The effect on the novel is very much the same. The dedication to John Francis McCarthy is probably, for me, the key to the context. McCarthy said in an interview that he wrote the novel as a love story for his son. And the narrative reflects this, and I think partly that the sense of love for one's son certainly comes through, and that's perhaps why it's a little bit of a different sort of novel for McCarthy. You need to think about how this impacts on the writing and your reading of the novel. What do you make of it? Does it explain the sacrifices his father makes, the hope, if you think there's any hope, and some critics don't, in the novel, and the extraordinary road trip, the journey he goes on to find something more, something better for his son? As it says on page 287, a lot of bad things have happened, but we're still here. And I think that's the significance of it. It's basically a novel of survival, and I'll talk about the themes and ideas later. I'd just like to finish this brief introductory lecture with a quote from my notes, and it's thinking about what sort of novel it is, what sort of genre this novel fits into. And this is an article by Nicholas Kaufman, and you'll find the details of the website in the notes. It says, Cormac McCarthy's Pulitzer Prize-winning 2006 novel The Road represents a particular genre conundrum. This ugly, brutal and tragic tale of post-apocalyptic America, where an unnamed man and his son travel a deserted road in search of safety from both the elements and from other survivors, many of whom have banded together to form roaming cannibalistic tribes, is claimed in equal measure by readers of horror, science fiction and literary fiction. But with horror readers in particular, there seems to be some controversy as to whether The Road fits the genre bill. It's true that father and son's journey is punctuated by jarring moments of threat and grotesquerie. A cellar filled with chained, half-dead people being kept as livestock. The corpse of a baby roasting on a spit, to name two of the novel's bravura terror scenes. But is that enough to call The Road a horror novel? In particular, you need to think about the different aspects of the different genres that would fit into this novel. And certainly it's a dystopian novel in many ways, and it is speculative fiction about how a world will turn out. There are elements of horror, there are gothic elements, there are different sorts of elements in The Road, and I think that's what makes this context of it a very interesting thing to figure out. That's all for this very brief lecture on the context of the road. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm Bruce Pattinson from Total Education Centre. Thank you. Hi, I'm Bruce Pattinson from Total Education Centre, and we really hope you enjoyed that lecture on the road. Don't forget to visit us at totaleducation.com.au for all your educational needs and some other teacher notes and student notes on the road and many other titles. We also hope you learn to succeed. That's our motto, and we know you can.